Good morning, everyone. This is Aru from Plunge down here in New Zealand, Whangarei, beautiful city, and it's a bit clouded over. I was up at 5 o'clock this morning and had to go back to sleep because I did a quick interview with Chris Gore from Film Threat, and
Yeah.
I was a bit tired, and I was like, okay, let's make sure this works. And then we got it going, and then I went pop back to sleep, and hopefully I'm awake and ready to do this. So thank you for joining us, guys. I've got Randy Zimmerman here, classic legend of comic books from Arrow Comics.
Oh, listen to you talk. Classic legend. Yeah, okay. Just
Well,
stuck
I'm gonna
around
get
long enough
schooled here.
for enough people to know me. That's what it is.
Yeah. But I am going to be schooled here. I know that much. So history of comics, and I'm quite excited to learn.
Just love
And
it.
things that I don't know a lot about, especially the American side of comics. And
There you go.
Going on the other side of the world down here in New Zealand, we don't get to know a lot of people apart from the names and and signatures on comic books.
Sure.
And sometimes I remember walking into oh gosh, I think it was Bill Straczynski or something like that. Well-known Batman writer, right? I had no idea who he was.
Okay.
Because I never saw him before. At a convention, and one of my friends said, "Hey, this is him." I said, "I don't know that guy," because I hadn't looked on the names on the, it was just reading the comics. So, Randy, do you want to introduce yourself? Give us a quick bio, and then we'll get into the meat and grind of things.
How much time you got? Anyway, no, just kidding. I'm Randy Zimmerman. I started out, I've been doing alternative and independent comics for most of my life. Arrow Comics. I started out as art director back in 85, 86. Arrow at the time, I was their first title, their guinea pig title, doing Tales from the Universe along with Susan Van Camp, who went on to paint a lot of Magic cards, especially early on in the Magic card starter sets. Then Arrow Comics, I did, after Tales from the Universe, I was art director there for a few years, wrote all the letter columns in Dead World. I was King Zombie for a little bit, if you're familiar with that title. Then I freelanced around with Caliber and Antarctic and a bunch of other independent companies. I was offered an internship at Marvel, and I asked the guy how much it paid, and when he told me, I laughed in his face, and it kind of stopped the discussion right there. Burned that bridge really good, So I freelanced around in alternative comics. I've self-published a lot of stuff under the Weeby Comics and Massive Comics names. Aniverse stuff, War of the Worlds with Caliber Press, that's still available over on Amazon. War of the Worlds Infestation. Mostly I print Arrow Comics now. A lot of my stuff and a lot of stuff from other folks that I really respect, and we try to do the best quality comics that we can, the most entertaining comics that we can, and put it out there. There's a lot of crowdfunding that we've done lately over at fundmycomic.com. There's a few campaigns running over there, and there's a few other books here. I'm probably best known for Tales from the Universe, War of the Worlds, Spank the Monkey, which is kind of an underground angry little monkey who's really my voice saying the stuff that I want to say, and HeroBot Zero, I would say. It's a 3-foot tall little giant robot that fights big menaces in a city as long as he can do it on the clock and get time and a half for hazard pay. So, and I've done a lot of other things. I love comics. Comics have kept me sane since I was very, very young. And I love every aspect of sequential art. I currently podcast 3 times a week, once with Nerd Bacon on Thursday morning of my time. I'm here in Michigan. I'm just barely south of Flint, Michigan, right in the mid, right there, right there. But anyway, Nerd Bacon on Thursday mornings, my time, about 9 a.m. Then I do a show at 5 a.m. my time on Fridays called Comics by Night, where I have a couple of great British professionals on, and we dissect different American comics. A lot of stuff they haven't seen before, which makes it really fun. And then Sunday morning, I do a show also at 9 a.m. Eastern time called Sunday Funnies, where we try to talk about the more positive and lighthearted things about comics. And those are all available over at the Indie Comics Network on YouTube. So We try
Awesome.
to provide a lot of content. Like I said, I love comics and breathe comics, just everything comics for me.
I was talking to Chris Gore, and he said, like, if you can, if you have a dream, you go at it for 10 hard years, you dedicate it for 10 hard years, and
Mm-hmm.
if you still find that you still love it and you're still enjoying it, keep at it. But if you
Oh yeah.
don't, that's when you get out to another
Yep.
job or something. And I think that's a pretty sound advice. I think a lot of
Oh yeah,
times you're just
it is.
kicking against the gourds, right? Like
Yep.
the rose
Yep.
bushes, and just trying to, you're not worried about how much it's going to hurt, but you keep doing it. And I think if you
That's
keep,
exactly right. Yep.
yeah, and if you find out yourself that you keep doing it and it's not paying you back, you're going to become very miserable very quickly, and you're going to start hating people that you're working with. You're going to start hating yourself.
Yeah.
But if if you just go, this is what I want, and you're happy with it, all that stuff will fall away. And I think it's just such a cool thing to see, that this medium has been going on for so long, and we're
Yes.
still doing it, and
Yep.
more people are coming to it, like myself, and so many more young ones are coming up as well.
Well, it's an art form that's never going to go away. You're always going to
Right.
see the combination of words and pictures, no matter what form, whether you see it on the computer screen or if you hold it in your hand. But to me, I'm a real physical kind of
Yeah.
guy. And the way I've always found it works is that once you print your first comic, once you hold your
Yeah.
first physical comic in your hand and you open it up and you look at it and you realize that it's something that you created, that came out of you,
Yeah.
it's like having a kid. And you decide at that point if you're going to love this medium for the rest of your life or not. That's the way it works. So for me, it's always been comics. And despite any hurdle that you run into, eventually, I've always come back to doing sequential art and comics.
Right.
So that's it for me. So yeah, I plan on never retiring and just doing comics until I can anymore. That's the way it
So
is.
how did you get into it? How did comics get a hold of you, and what age?
Very early on, I was raised in a very restrictive religion. My parents watched, kept an eye on anything that we watched on television, and they wouldn't allow me to have superhero comics, which really made it the bright, shiny object for me. So I had to find out why,
Yeah.
and it just piqued my interest. So from that point on, I started looking at comics. Plus, my uncle gave me a book on how to draw when I was 8. How to draw Woody
Right.
Woodpecker, old cartoon characters using basic shapes. And that spoiled me for life. Once I realized you could draw these characters by throwing circles and little curved lines, and you can do whatever you want. You can say whatever you want.
Yeah.
It just took off from there. And like I said, during those early years, comics literally kept me sane. They helped me through a lot of rough times. And when I got away from the house, and I just kept doing comics, I retailed for a number of years. And just kept working. I had to stop retailing because I was reading these books and thinking I can do a lot better than that. I can draw that better. I can do that better. And so I pulled away from retailing and into creating. And though I've always drawn, though my style tends to be really cartoony. That's my work here.
Right.
That I do love writing more serious work and doing more serious. I love every aspect of comics and have done a wide variety of stuff over the years.
Yeah.
So yeah. But
So
once it gets in your blood, that's it. You're just done.
right. So how did your parents deal with you drawing and stuff? I mean, especially when you're the rebel at 8 years old, right?
Yeah. They restricted me down to 2 sheets of notebook paper a day, which was their mistake. They bought they'd buy a ream of paper, and I'd start going through it. And they said, no, you can't do that. You're down to 2 pages a day. So I quickly figured out that page has got 2 sides. So really it was 4 pages a day. And then if I draw a plus sign in the middle of it, I've got 4 panels on each page. So that's 16 places I can draw.
Right.
So I was drawing 16 panels a day, every day. And every day I'd come home from school, I'd get my 2 pages and I'd sit there and draw a big plus sign in them and start drawing in the little panels. And then from there, I just started telling stories. So
did they, seeing you like push so hard against them artistically with comics and stuff, did they say, well, all right, we got to get more restrictive? Or they just said, yeah, we're not winning here, let's just let him do his thing? Or
yes to both. Yeah,
right?
there's a time that my dad dragged me out of my house, and there were folks out in front of my house digging ditches.
Yeah.
And he dragged me out of the house, and he said, "I would rather see you doing that than drawing comics." That didn't stop me.
Yeah.
So then eventually he ended up buying a set of paints because I was
Right.
drawing everywhere, drawing on the walls and stuff. He says, "Well, if you're going to paint a wall, in your room, you can have this wall, and here's a set of paints, and put all sorts of cartoons." Because they had taken me to Disney World before that, and there in Disney World, in the Walt Disney Story, there's this incredibly huge mural of all of the Disney characters at the time, all walking there. So I wanted to do that on my wall. So eventually my dad gave up, just bought me a set of paints and told me that here's a wall and go take it. But with superheroes, my mom was really the religious one. And it got to a point where she would let me read anything but superheroes, because superheroes were violent. And she caught me with a Twilight Zone digest, comics digest. And in that digest, it had a story of a guy making a deal with the devil. And she made the deal with me then, if I were to take that digest and throw it in the fire, she'd allow me to buy superhero comics. So I said, "Oh, okay." Boom. There it went. But from there on, it was any way that I could buy comics or anything that I could read in comics. I scoured every book, and there weren't a lot in the library at the time. I knew everything. I knew most of the superheroes before I started buying superhero comics. So, of course, one of the first books I pick up is Legion of Superheroes, because it's all characters I had never seen before. Who's these crazy Mon-El or whatever, and just crazy characters. So I had to buy that. And Shazam, because I had read about Captain Marvel, seen him one panel, because back then they weren't printing a lot. So Shazam 1 come out, Legion of Superheroes come out, and then Secret Origins 1. Those are the first 3 books I bought. And then I picked up Marvel Team Up number 6 because it was a crossover between Spider-Man and the Cat, and I had never seen the Cat before. So I had to read up about her. So ever since then, I've been like a sponge, just any character I can find and whatever comics. I just love it.
Yeah, I was just noting that they just put out a Legionnaire. I think it was Supergirl and the Legionnaires.
Cartoon,
just animated movie just recently.
That was nice to see.
Yeah, and that's what I love about the DC side of things when it comes to entertainment, because they actually make standalone movies based around these characters, which introduces them without anything, just in a fun way.
Right.
And and I think that's where they win. I think they win with the animated series. Movies.
Their animation is the their animation for the last their animation for the last 10, 15 years has been their MCU.
Yeah,
really. And so they've done super tight, very entertaining, great cartoons. You can sit there and watch them anytime. If you're lucky enough to have the Max streaming service, they're all up on there. You just sit there and just find one you haven't seen before and sit and watch it. It's all brain check for an hour and a half. You don't have to worry about nothing but watch a fun movie, fun cartoon. And no, it looks like, it's comics on film is what it is.
Yeah, and it's so much fun. I think I don't know why they don't concentrate on that more. Just go on that more. Let's stop these $200 million movies every couple of months. Let's just go on that more. Why don't you just take $200 million and go, give me 20 movies, or whatever the price and works out at 15 movies, animated movies throughout the year, 1 a month. Just go for it. 12 movies a year, and each year, and plus you get to sell them, right? You get Blu-ray, DVDs. You bring out what they used to do in the old times was you do your animated movies, and then you get TV shows, and then you bring out the character. Tim. What's his name? Tim.
Bruce Timm.
Bruce Timm. His art. It's just so good. And I think
absolutely.
I think they just need to concentrate on that. I mean, if you're looking at Netflix, right, just on that whole thing, Netflix is chasing after anime and manga and all that. But if DC just goes, with 80 years, 90 years of all these stories, why don't we just keep doing a whole series of Teen Titans and just keep doing it and just leave it, and now we've got HBO X, whatever, Max has got all the streaming products just for us.
If you haven't seen Young Justice, you haven't seen a great superhero, cartoon. That's probably the best superhero cartoon ever. Is that Young Justice show? It's just really good, just amazingly good.
Yeah, I remember when the first 2 seasons came out way back, and like it was so good. I think I caught about first season of this latest one, and some of the second one.
It just gets tighter the farther along it goes. It's like unpeeling. It's like peeling back an onion, and they use everything that they've shown you before and just add on to it. And then every season is like for a while there, they were jumping 5 years between every season, adding new characters that you didn't know anything about. It's just a blast. It was just really good.
Yeah, I mean, like, there is nothing you can fault with the animated side of things that I can think of with DC.
Yeah.
You know, Batman Adventures, like that. It's just such a
Batman the animated series. I still have it on VHS tape, even though I don't have a player hooked up to a TV right now. But I've got it on tape, sitting here on a shelf, every last episode, because it was so good. Yeah, had to.
I've been chasing up like the DVDs. Like we've been so like I've ended up buying these for a couple of bucks.
Yeah.
Because people who used to own them, have gone to streaming. They said, "Oh, I'll have the digital," and I'm like, "No, I'll have the original. Thank you very much."
Yeah.
Nothing can be changed on them. Mm-hmm. So I've been able to get so much because of that. Like just being able to fill out my library that I never, that I didn't have. And now it's suddenly I've got rows and rows of all these animated movies and shows and stuff.
And what you say is so true. You can't trust these streaming services because tomorrow they might decide something isn't culturally correct or whatever, and they'll go through and they'll alter all the cartoons all the way down the line. And so you might as well keep it in its original form, as best and as pristine as you can possibly find them. Yeah, absolutely.
That is a scary part of being a creator, right? Like creating something really original, really cool. Mm-hmm. And then somebody comes along and goes, okay, we're going to change some stuff. That's what I find scary for me. Yep. Like, and I find that I'm always kind of like blogging heads with people about how things are being changed. Mm-hmm. I mean, I had a go at Neil Gaiman for changing death, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And I was like, and he's like, yeah, I can do whatever. I'm like, dude, though, you told us one thing. You said this was your friend, right? So we've had a personal connection to your friend through this artwork, and now you want to change that to somebody else and then tell us you got to accept it. It's me, the creator. It's like, but you put it into the world, and as this, and that's why I have a problem with when they start changing it. It's like you gave me something else, now you want to bait and switch. I used to be a salesperson. You don't bait and switch, because if customers get really pissed off, and you don't want to like sell them short. Expect them to be like, just accept it.
What's the whole idea behind making money is catering to your audience.
Yeah. And I think Disney's learning that the hard way right now.
Oh, right? Really hard. Yes. They deserve every dollar that they lose with some of the stunts that they've pulled. Yeah. Just terrible. Sad to see.
It is. And I feel bad for the employees, right? The low-tier employees and stuff. Yep. Not these guys who are making like $100 million, or not 100 million, sorry, but like, 10 million, 12 million, $1 million, whatever. But then you got the sweeper on the ground.
Yeah.
Who's picking up the rubbish and stuff. Because I used to do that stuff. So I feel empathy for people like that, and just saying, the big wigs make the stupidest decisions, and the young one, the people on the lower tier have to deal with it.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's like they just don't care, and it feels,
You'll always know a movie or any bit of entertainment is going to blow when they tell you that they intentionally didn't read the source material.
Yeah.
Like, why are you doing that for? Come on.
Yeah. Just pass it on to somebody else if you're not there.
Give it to somebody who cares. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you got the wall painted, and you headed. Did you go to art school? Did you carry on? What happened after that rebellion period?
Back when I was growing up, the only school that you could go to learn comics was the Kubert School in New Jersey, and that was so expensive per class hour, I just couldn't go. So during my junior and senior year of high school, I went to a trade center to learn commercial art, and this was right before computers came in. So I learned all of the materials, all of the techniques necessary that were outdated in like 3 years after I graduated by Photoshop.
Right.
Just and I was a master of hand separations with Rubylith and Amberlith and lining up everything on registration marks and setting down press-on letters, and all of that's just gone as soon as Photoshop came in and CorelDRAW came in, and just all of that stuff was all passe. But you know, I still had that basic commercial art training and composition, things like that I just took with me. So
is this about 94 or 93?
Oh no, this is a lot earlier than that. This was in the late 70s for me.
About the mid about that time.
About the mid 80s is when Corel started springing up.
Yeah, I was remembering my dad had it, and so, and also I worked on it as well. So
yeah,
in my 20s,
I still work off of an ancient version of Photoshop today. I just won't let it go, and I don't want to subscribe to it because, again, just like with streaming services, you never know at the last minute they're going to change a toll or change a bell or whistle, and if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to be messed up. So yeah, I work off of 3 systems because I do a lot of commercial artwork here. I've got one system that's hooked up to a vinyl cutter that's still running off of Windows 98,
right,
and that I never set up to the net. I've got another one here that I do all my layout work on. And that's running off of, I think it's Windows 10, one of the older Windows program. And then the system that I have my camera and stuff set up to has got it's the best system that I could get at the time. And I knew a guy who was into IT, so he set me up with the best of the best. So that's right. I can't even tell you what it's running on, but it runs really good, and I haven't had a problem with it. I've got 2 terabytes worth of memory, and I've got a Wacom tablet hooked up to it, a camera and a microphone, and I'm good to go.
Right. Now, well, I mean, like, you spend 3 years, studying, and then find that how did you make the change to,
It was a slow evolution, but with the graphics program, I was working as an art department for a apparel printing company, and they picked up a graphics computer. They basically set me in front of a chair and said, learn it. So I had to learn by doing and make all the mistakes and figure it out. But luckily I was getting paid to do it at the time. And that pretty much prepped me for CorelDRAW and Photoshop. So I still use it. Everybody uses InDesign and all the top new layout software that they have. I still use Corel to lay stuff out.
Yeah.
For my lettering and my all of my production work, my print files, I build all up in CorelDRAW because that's what I know.
Yeah, I think I remember when I went to film school back in 2003-4, I found Celtex, CELTX for writing, and I've never stopped using that.
There you go. You use what works for you.
Right.
It's just like any other tool. Yeah.
Exactly. It's what you're comfortable with. The other tool for drawing and design work I used was what used to be called Manga Studio X. It's called now Clip Studio Paint. And still, those two, I mirror those two up. That's all I need, really, because one I can use to write my comic scripts or film scripts or whatever, and then the other to draw and design, and then put all my lettering and bubbles and everything there, and do all my color drops and send it off to my to my illustrator and to my artist and say, color these in, because I think just by changing all the time, you lose, the software is not going to be around. The oldest software is the only one that's going to be around. That like Betamax, right? It just came and went.
Yeah.
And it was like everybody switched to it. I remember my dad had Betamax and it was like, okay, we're going to do VHS sort of now, and that survived. And now we got vinyl back, and I think I was talking to Stuart Blackwater from 121 Gigawatts or Gigawatts over in Borgia, his new store, and you're saying how vinyl's coming back in.
Yeah.
I mean, not vinyl, sorry, VHS is coming back in.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Within the next 2 years, we'll have all this on VHS, on tape. So they'll probably end up with like a little USB port machine with
Yeah.
VHS tape you can put it into.
Well, I
It'll
think
be-
you're seeing a big strike back to the old entertainment, because the new entertainment is not, it doesn't have the quality that the old entertainment has. I was talking with some friends just yesterday about the films of the 80s and how they don't match up to modern film, because they were so much better back then.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's even some of them had practical effects. You didn't have the same computer digital CGI but the stories were better, you know.
Yeah.
And you can
Yeah.
even go back even farther, for me, back to the old radio dramas, and see that they were done so much better than a lot of TV that came out afterwards. There's a lot of great old entertainment. I'm getting into old pulp stories now, especially stuff that's almost 100 years old, that's pressing public domain. There's some phenomenally done stuff back then that people have no idea existed.
Yeah.
Just crazy.
I mean,
that's why your nostalgia TV channels pick up as much as they do, and you catch
right.
whatever old B movie you want on, like Crackle or Pluto or Roku or whatever, because the old stuff, a lot of times, is better than the new stuff.
I think the oldest entertainment was like fictional world that I think I got stuck in was Robert E. Howard's Conan.
Oh, there you go. Yep.
And it was just I used to read all the little. I think Dad had on VHS Conan the Barbarian,
Mm-hmm.
and then the other one came out. I
Mm-hmm.
think it was a Destroyer.
Yeah, Conan the Destroyer. Yep.
And then Red Sonja came out, and I was just hooked. You know,
Yeah.
I was picking up paperbacks for 50 cents and $1 or $2 at secondhand shops, bookstores and stuff. Wherever I went, I was like, let's go.
Oh,
I got lost in the rubbish, and you know, I missed them, and now I'm slowly trying to pick them back up because.
Oh, absolutely! I just picked up a couple of Conan paperbacks at a show I was at. Not the one I'm at this weekend, but the one I was at last weekend, with Frazetta covers on them. Got them for $2 a piece.
Oh well.
I'm like, well, $2. Oh yeah, I can afford that. Here you go. Yeah, great stuff.
That's almost like about $3 New Zealand, $3.50 New Zealand, and that's cheap as chips, as we say. No,
yep.
You know, it's and to think that, you know, he died at such a young age, you know, and
oh yeah,
what he could, even that short time he lived, he gave us so much, and I think
there was so much that they found after he passed that were rejected, that weren't there. That's just prime stuff. It's just amazing. Right now, I've got a project that Russ Leach over in Britain, he's one of the podcasters that works with me. The two of us, well, he's doing all the work. We're currently adapting the Shadow Kingdom, which is the first Cull story, into a graphic novel, and he's just knocking it out of the park. Just amazing stuff. And he's having a blast doing it because he loves the old Conan comic books and John Buscema and all that. And he's just really putting his heart into it, and you can see it. It's just beautiful stuff. And it's it's a great story. All of those old Howard stories are just incredible.
Yeah. I mean, you can't, it's like he created that fantasy, you know, setting for everybody who came afterwards and go,
yeah,
pirates,
he did. Yep.
You know, what barbarians and you know, old gods, new gods, all this, you know,
well, the Shadow Kingdom is looked at as the story that started the sword and sorcery genre.
Oh, okay.
There's one or two little stories before that were, I think, French or Italian, that involved sword play and sorcery. But the Howard Shadow Kingdom's really the first Cull story. He just becomes king of Valusia and finds out that there's a conspiracy against the throne by a race of shape-shifting lizard people.
Right.
It's just great story.
I'm gonna have to get a hold of that. I just bought my friend. His birthday was about 2 weeks after me. We both born in May, so we just turned, 50 at the same time. And I bought him a new Conan the Barbarian book that just came out of Titan. Because
I haven't seen those yet. I heard they're phenomenal.
Yeah. So Marvel lost the rights and Titan picked it up, but now it's like anybody can work on it, right? Or is it stuck with Titan?
Well, you have to be careful as to which story you choose, which story you adapt. The Cull story that we're working on, we know is in public domain because it was printed so long ago, and at least here in the States, it's accepted as being in public domain. And Oblaze, which I think is Italian, and that is tapped into an Italian company. They're adapting a lot of the Conan material that they know is in public domain.
Okay.
Because when Howard wrote his stories, he wrote them one character at a time. Like all of the
Yeah.
Solomon Kanes were done first. They're all in
Yeah.
everything that was printed back then are all in public domain. Cull, there's only 3 Cull stories that are in public domain because that's all he had printed back then. And then he did Conan. But he's got another half a dozen, I think at least another 4 or 5 stories that he stuck in a trunk, and he sent them to Weird Tales. They were rejected. He stuck them in a trunk and just moved on.
Yeah.
And those stories you can't touch because they were printed later in the 60s. So
yeah, it's I watched it late night accidentally, right? Because I was up late and I just turned it on, and there was Vincent D'Onofrio doing the life biography,
whole wide world
of Robert E. Howard. Yeah.
Yep. Whole wide world. And he has this great speech in there where he describes Conan. Yeah. And a lot of Howard aficionados will tell you he was not that crazy. Yeah. He didn't come off as that loony, but you can see the passion that D'Onofrio plays in that character when he's describing Conan. He's a mean SOB, take nothing from nobody. Yeah. Just a great clip. You can find that over on YouTube. Just a fantastic clip. It's a good movie. It's a little dry, but it's really good. I like it.
I mean, it blew me away. It was like, I'm just watching it. I'm going, what's going on here? What's this? And then I'm like, my eyes open and I went, did he just say Conan?
Yeah.
I'm like,
because you can see him hunched over at his manual typewriter, typing away and living that story as it's coming out of his fingers. That's the cool thing about Howard, especially with Cull. I found Cull is a lot more Howard than Conan is. Conan's a character that he created that's just this barbarian, that your typical barbarian character romping through situations. But there's a lot of Howard personally in Cull. Because Cull is always thinking, most of the time he's overthinking situations as he comes across them and remembering back to his past and how rough he's had it and what he should do and all this. That's why he's got Brule. He's got a buddy that's always behind him, who always knocks him in the shoulder and goes, see that? Just kill it. Just kill it.
Yeah.
Just go kill it. Don't stop thinking. Go kill it. That's part of the fun of those stories. Just great stuff. Yeah.
The 80s was a great time for fantasy movies, right?
Unbelievable.
You had the Beastmaster, you had like the Conan series, you had Cole, and of course you had Lady Hawk, you had
Sword and the Sorcerer.
Lady Hawk was magic.
Yeah. Oh, it was. Sword and the Sorcerer.
Yeah.
You ever see that guy with the sword with 3 blades that he used to shoot out? Just hilarious stuff. Great stuff. There's a lot to be said for that era. Yeah. All sorts of great movies during that time period.
And all practical effects as much as possible.
Yep.
And I can't remember how many times I watched Beastmaster. It was just I just enjoyed it so much. Just the kid who gets lost and is taken away and then he comes back and he's got 2 little weasels or whatever they call them.
Little otters. Yeah, mongooses. Yeah. And, it's a great, solid popcorn movie. Yeah,
it is.
Don't think about it. Just watch it. It's fun. Yeah,
exactly. It's just such an enjoyable movie, and I'm sure the ladies would love it because he's always shirtless in a loincloth.
Beef.
And, it's kind of like that same. Our present day Aquaman is like that version, right? For the ladies, it's like the shirtless hero comes in.
Back when women were women and men were shirtless. Yes.
Yeah.
And cut.
Right. So back to let's say we stopped in at like commercial art. Mm-hmm. So how long were you at the commercial art?
Well, I was doing commercial art while I was still doing comics. So I got printed back in 84. I was going to apply to do, there was a local guy here, by local, I mean in my state, that did a book called Justice Machine, and he was going to do a show in Grand Rapids. And I drove 2 hours to go over and see him, and he wasn't there. Right. But there was another guy there from Chicago that printed his own fanzine comic that he called Just Imagine Comics and Stories. He asked to see my stuff, and he looked at it and says, why aren't you printed yet? Do up a story and send it to me, which is like the biggest ego expansion you could possibly get. So I went home and worked 2 months on an 8-page story, because I had to make it just right. and sent it in, and he took it without, you know, any question. So,
Yeah.
and in that book, he started a lot of great folks' careers. Doug Rice was in that book. But the issue that I was on had a Mike Vosberg cover, who went on to do all sorts, or who was doing all sorts of stuff for Marvel and DC at the time. There were a lot of people that started up in Just Imagine Comics and Stories. And then I started doing shows and setting up at shows and doing artwork. And I bumped into Bill Mesner Loebs. And at the time, he was doing a book called Journey, Wolverine McAllister, which was a guy that was wandering around the wilderness of Michigan. And he got to read some of my stories, and he read one of them and just laughed and said that he had to print it. So he printed that story, and I did a couple of other stories and a couple other pinup pieces for him that got printed in Journey. 11 and 13, I think, were the two big ones for me. And then from there, I got bit by the independent comic bug, and I just started doing, you know, all sorts of independent comics. Then I bumped into Ralph Griffith and Stuart Kerr, who were doing Arrow, and they were going to do their own books. They ended up doing The Realm and Dead World. And they wanted a book to go ahead of them so that they could use as a guinea pig. So Susan Van Camp and I were working on that Funny Animals science fiction universe called Tales from the Aniverse, and we kicked that book out through them. That was back in late '85.
Okay.
And then from there, it's just whatever gig I could get my hands on. You know, when I started self-publishing under Weeby Comics, Arrow was the black and white bust happened. Black and white comics were having a really rough time surviving. And I just started doing whatever freelance work I could get my hands on. And at the same time, I was working in different T-shirt shops, working as their art department.
Yeah.
So I was never too far away from artwork. And just kept doing, you know, around that time, I passed on Marvel and just kept doing alternative comics. So.
Right. So you said something about the bust in black and white comics, and just, you know, my brain just went manga. It's black and white. And you know, all of East Asia and the West, of course, is taken with that art form, and it's in black and white. You know, it's like, how did this bust happen with in the West?
Well, there was a period in the late '80s, very early '90s, and it was really fed by Turtles, Teenage Ninja Mutant Turtles, because it started out as a black and white alternative independent comic before it blew up really big. So everybody was chasing the next Turtles. All the retailers were looking at anything that was coming in through the distributors as a potential next Turtles. And it got to a point where a lot of very greedy publishers decided to take advantage of the situation. So they flooded the market with really bad quality black and white books.
Right.
And after a while, it started soaking up too much of the retailer money. So they started cutting back on everything. So if you were a black and white book, you were looked at it with suspicion. And then Diamond started, the main comics distributor at the time. They had narrowed themselves down to the main. By that time, they were becoming the main comic distributor. They decided that they really wanted to promote color superhero books. They had there was some demographic study that narrowed comic readers down to 25 to 55-year-old, mostly white, mostly male. Yeah. And they were all interested in male power fantasies, so they were pushing superheroes, and they wanted color superheroes, not black and white superheroes. So the black and whites were stuck back in a green section, where there still are today, and they have a really rough time surviving. And if they had their way back then, they would have had us all just gone. But there were a lot of publishers back then, Caliber and Antarctic being among them, that just stuck it out and kept putting out product and kept selling product. So they survived the bust. And then when Image came in, it was a lot harder even then, because Image really soaked up a lot of retailer money. So the black and whites had a really rough time that narrowed the field down even farther. Caliber hung on, Fantagraphics hung on. Antarctic became a little spotty, but they're still around today, so it's all good.
Yeah.
I mean, Caliber's still around. Really well. They're good. Yeah. And Arrow has come and gone through those periods off and on through different incarnations. And, we're back, but we're back doing mostly color books now. So, because that's comics. So, and print on demand has become relatively inexpensive, especially with crowdfunding. So we're able to do color now. Yeah.
And I think that crowdfunding, has really impacted the indie market, because of the fact that you can print on demand, the fact that somebody is out there wants those books. It's not like you're just going to shove it on the shelf and wait for someone to buy them, but it's where somebody actually wants the book, and so you're kind of like a guaranteed customer.
Mm-hmm.
And
it is a guaranteed customer. You know what your per unit cost is going to be. You know how much profit you're going to get. So if you're careful and you know a little bit of business, you're able to do okay.
Yeah.
You know, and then it's still difficult to explain to folks who come in onto a campaign and go, why am I paying $25-$30 for this book? You know, and $10 in shipping. Well, shipping ain't cheap anymore. It's really expensive, especially if you ship outside of the United States. For us, it's super high, you know, just crazy expensive. But they don't understand that with print on demand, your per unit cost goes way up because they're only printing, you know, whatever we order, 25 to 50 to 100 to 1,000 books. You know, if we could print 3,000 or 4,000, we'd get it offset printing, and then it's like a regular comic, and we can charge you know, lower or better than comic book rates. Look at, you know, Alterna, I think, prints a lot of stuff on newsprint and has a really low price point. You know, but they just have to understand we're really, in a lot of ways, we become kind of a niche printing market, a specialty printing market, where we're offering services to a specific clientele, getting direct orders right from the clientele, and then servicing the clientele directly.
I was thinking about like the whole idea that like if you're buying a comic book from, say, you know, the mainstream Marvel or DC, there's at least about 5 or 6 pages of just ads. And you're not getting your 22 pages. Sometimes you're only getting 20 pages. Sometimes you're getting 21, but the rest is just made up of like back matter, or which I enjoy, to be honest, back matter. But a lot of it's just ads and ads and ads, and the paper itself is cheap, right? You put your finger on it and the ink will come off. You leave your thumbprint on it.
That can happen most of the time. Some of the time,
it's like it gets smudged and stuff, and it's like, you know, the quality's gone lower, the page count's going lower, the adverts have gone higher, and you're still paying more now. You know, the prices just keep going higher. Right?
I was going to say, oddly enough, the cover price has almost exceeded that of a lot of the alternative and independent books, because they think they know that they can get away with it. So they do. It's a lot of greed out there.
I think, I mean, it's been a cost of the shops, right? It's the end user, the end customer, you know, or the retail that pays for it all. You know? And I think it's once again, it's the corporate making the decision that's actually harming the low, you know, the guys at the bottom, their wallets, because those guys at the top don't have to care. They've got a set, you know, they've got a set salary, they've got a set, you know, contract. Whatever they do, you know, they get paid no matter what. Whereas the shop owner
and the big companies are watched over by larger corporations. So they're looking at this as almost an advertising expense now, instead of a money generating or capital generating part of their business. And that especially gets really irritating, because once that happens, they stop caring about the quality of the books.
Right. I mean, like, what is it like? DC only makes about 350 million from comics, but they can make that up in one movie.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So it's like basically all those comics are just like advertising, like you said. They're just promotion for the movies, and to keep the shelf space, really, you know. And even in the bookstores and libraries, it's just for keeping shelf space, to keep people's eyes there, to say, hey, this is, you know, this is the character that they come from, you know, that'll be in the movie.
They want to keep the character more out in front of the eye. They don't care what the character's doing. And if you look at those books, they're doing anything that they can right now to discourage readership by doing every outlandish thing that they can think of with the character. You know, and they still, the large corporations still just let them keep going instead of trying to concentrate on, you know, generating real capital. And much to the detriment of the retailers, because the retailers are really feeling that right now. They feel it necessary to pick up one of everything that they're doing, but half of what they're doing is just nasty stuff that can't sell. So they end up, you know, it ends up feeding their $1 or $2 boxes.
It can't last though. Like, I mean, like, you know, this has been going on for the last probably about 5 to 10 years, and any cycle, if you treat any product this way, it's not going to last. I mean, the customer will get turned off. I mean, you saw that with the beer thing.
Mhm.
You know, people were just, it didn't even take that long. They were just
Absolutely.
out within couple months. It was just over.
Yep,
You
that's
know,
very true.
but you know, and Disney's like, you know, over $1 billion in losses now because they kept pushing and kept pushing.
And it
And
seems like they don't care. Yeah.
talking about which, so we were talking about DC before. So now DC went against everything with the Flash movie, right? With Ezra Miller. Now, everybody said we don't want him. We
Right,
don't
right.
want him. We
Yep.
don't want him. And they're like,
Mhm.
we're gonna have the best movie ever made. Yeah. You know, James Gunn is out there. This is the best superhero ever made.
Sure.
You know, movie ever made.
Mhm.
And all this, and it's what, like, the customers had already decided they don't like this kid, right? They don't like this dude, the way he's
Yeah, but
behaving.
the problem
know?
with that, the Flash movie was horrible timing. You know,
Yeah.
Ezra went off the deep end. Nobody was expecting that. Nobody was
Yeah.
expecting the bug to spring up. Nobody, and then DC had, Warner Brothers really had already sunk so much money into that film that they had to do something with it. So they ended up putting it out anyway, even though it bombed really bad. It wasn't a horrible movie. The person that was in it was horrible and turned out to be horrible after they had filmed most of that movie. And if it was any other person than Ezra Miller, they'd have probably more than broke even on that film.
Yeah. I actually, to be honest, I did like it.
Yeah.
I thought it was cool. But the problem was every time I saw his face, I was thinking,
that's Ezra Miller. Holy crap. And he had two parts in that film. Yeah. Why him?
Yeah. It's like I'm seeing Michael Keaton, you know, I'm seeing Michael Keaton. Yes. You know, and I'm like, I'm so excited. I'm seeing the young girl who played Supergirl.
Mhm.
Yes. Very cool. You know, like that version, like this alternate version. Yes, very cool. Like the story. Yeah, interesting. Every time I saw him, I was like, you know, and I can
Marvel's running into the same problem with the guy who plays Kang.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do. They've got so much stuff already done, and his face has already been associated with the character that they think they're between a rock and a hard place. Really, they're not. If they want to get rid of the guy, just change the actors.
Yeah.
Just like they should have done with Black Panther. They should have brought somebody, I mean, great respect to Patrick Boseman, and he was absolutely T'Challa while he was on the screen.
Yeah.
But that's a character I think they should have recast.
Definitely.
And after 3 or 4 movies, after 3 or 4 movies, if they wanted to make Shuri Black Panther, great, do it. But build up that Shuri character first and make people care about her before they did it.
Her toys are like on clearance. You know, that whole movie is on clearance right now. All the toys I can see, it's like I'm not even bothered buying it on clearance. You know, and I'm thinking, well, who is going to buy it at full price if I can't be bothered as a toy collector buying it on clearance?
People don't want it. But if they were to kick out another Black Panther movie, and or well, it's probably too late for Black Panther per se. If they were to kick out a Black Panther figure, they'd probably sell more of those than what they're selling Shuri right now.
Exactly.
So
I think they had I mean, that was the first movie was so good that everybody was going to give the second movie a chance. They didn't care if you switched the character out because that happened in with Rhodey, right? They switched Rhodey out. And I think it was second or third movie, and nobody cared.
Second movie,
and it was like, let's carry on. But why couldn't they do that in this one? And it's like, doesn't make sense. You know, it's like commercially it doesn't make sense.
That's one of many mistakes that they've made in this phase. So we'll see if they learn any with the next one. That's all you can do. You know, it's so cool though to sit there and watch some media, especially the the entertainment side, actually learn from their mistakes. Like Arrow, when Mark Gutenberg, anyway, you know who I'm talking about, had the Arrow character. They realized really quick that you can't have this character running around killing people all the time. So they stopped it, and they were able to adjust and correct that course. The Star Treks on Paramount are the same way. They started out really bad with really bad writers, and over a few seasons, they've realized, hey, we're not going to be able to sustain this unless we improve our quality. So now they're kicking out, Strange New Worlds is amazing. The last season of Picard was really good. And the last season of Discovery was more than watchable. It was just great, fun. It was a fun season. So they're learning, and that's cool. Everybody makes mistakes. It's how you treat it.
I remember when they started kicking the old white guys from DC, right, and from Marvel, the comics legends, right? People
Yeah.
who actually knew they made it like yourselves. They made careers out of this thing. Their
Yeah.
whole heart and soul was in this. When they started kicking them out for low pay, college graduates, that's when I think everything started going downhill, because now you couldn't tell. Now you couldn't have these guys who are legends saying no, this is the way it is. Whereas you had the young ones coming in, yeah, whatever you say, master. Whatever you
Well,
say.
it got to a point where they were coasting towards the end. We'll just throw everybody together in a movie. We'll call it Infinity Gauntlet, and we'll do another one that caps everything all off with everybody in it. We'll call that Endgame. Then what do you do after that?
Yeah.
You either stumble over your own feet, or you up your quality and you get better than what you ever were, and you raise everybody's expectations. Well, they stumbled over their own feet. They didn't know what to do. They already had stuff in the pipeline. They were stuck with Shang-Chi, and they were stuck with Eternals, and they didn't bother to correct it. And then they intentionally go out and get substandard writers to work in their streaming services. And what do they expect? It's a mess. Moon Knight, for example, is an incredible character that could go incredible places and should have made incredible money for them. Instead, they replaced her with an Egyptian goddess.
Yeah.
And that was a big mistake. The ending of the first and last episodes of Moon Knight are the best. Not all of the last episode, but right at the very end, where you realize the guy is still crazy, it made the whole show. But are they going to do another one? No, because they didn't make enough watchers on the first one. So the character's just dead weight now.
You're talking about Mark Guggenheim from Arrow TV, Arrow TV series. Now, he actually said they should just stop, right? Just stop everything and just reboot the entire thing. Just stop everything and just reboot it all. And I think that's probably the best thing to do right now. Just stop it for a couple of years. Just leave it.
Either that or continue sinking.
Yeah. And keep losing money, right?
Keep losing money. They keep making dumb mistakes, like making MODOK, who is probably one of the best villains during that period at Marvel, created by Kirby. Beautiful character, very menacing, very evil. Turn him into a clown, and then they expect to make money. It's like, no, that's not how that works. It's not how that works at all.
The sad part is that, they bring in so-called Oscar, nominees or winners, and who do something totally outside of comics, right?
Yeah.
Who've never done anything to do with comics, who've done, say romantic or drama stuff like that. And then they go, here's a comic book movie you can work on because you're so-and-so. Let's bring some of those Asian eyes to this product because, manga is really big right now. So let's get an Asian lady to do this, She-Hulk thing, and it'll be this. And why don't you just get someone who actually does comic books? Who's a great director, and just give it to them. Go, here you go. Then we can say, well, we gave it to the comic guys and they messed it up or whatever, or we gave it to them and they did great. Yeah. But now they got nothing to lean on that side because they got an activist who had nothing to do with comics to do a comic series or comic movie.
Well, the property's in trouble when the director or the main writer comes out and swears that they've never read the original material, and they wear that like a badge of honor. And it's not. It's a big disgrace. Everybody knows it. As soon as they see it in the interviews, they go, "That movie's not going to work."
Yeah.
And surprisingly, they don't make money off of it. Ooh, who knew? You don't have respect for the material. It's not going to do you very well.
I mean, imagine getting given the keys to the kingdom and making a mess of it.
That's what they did.
Just crapping all over the floor and going
literally. Yes.
Yep. Yeah. Here's the new house I built for you. Come and walk on the crap and enjoy it while you walk in it and the drudgery of it all. And it's like, no, thanks. And then they go, oh, right. That's because you're this, and this. Not because my product is utter rubbish, but because it's your fault. Like they said the other day with
they pass the blame. Nobody wants to take blame for their own mistakes anymore. It's just the way it works. Everybody wants to play victim. Have pity on me.
Yeah.
They were picking on me.
Yeah.
That crazy internet, nasty internet.
Yeah, or the American audience is too dumb to understand how a story works, or how character arcs work, or how characters are developed, or how people, tell their story. Just too stupid. It's like, I don't understand. Like we the medium of TV and movies has been part of our generation for decades. We understand how it works. And when we see something instinctively, we know it's wrong. We might not be able to articulate it. Like, I was talking with Chris about how Star Wars, I knew it was wrong. I just didn't know how to put into words why it was wrong,
Yeah.
And even like I might not know some of the rules to it, I still felt in my core that there was something wrong with this product.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
And 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 then they straight out try to gaslight you, say, no, it's your fault. You just don't understand it. You're just too stupid. You didn't get what we're trying to do. It's like, yeah, but you're the director. You're the storyteller.
If you're going to make an intellectual movie, go out and do the next Ghost, do the next Godfather, do the next Deer Hunter, whatever you need to do. If you tell a comic book movie, you better sure know what a comic book is. You better understand why a comic book is there. And it's not there to preach necessarily. You can have morality lessons. Absolutely. That's part of good writing, but don't preach. Don't go up there and put them on a soapbox. That's not what they're there for. They're there to see the bad guy get their butts kicked. That's what they're there for. That's the whole purpose behind a superhero movie.
And if you want to, do comics, go and read the X-Men Claremont series.
Absolutely.
If you want to preach, if you want to preach, that's how you preach.
Well, if you want to do it right, you go back and you look at the old Twilight Zones. You look at the original Star Treks that Roddenberry wrote. You look at the Claremont X-Men material. All of the you look at Watchmen.
Yeah,
so
that was the other thing I was thinking of. Yeah,
great, unbelievable intellectual property that was superheroes, but it looked at superheroes instead of mocking them.
Yeah, it was real serious and
intelligently deconstructed them.
Yeah. And everybody's trying to say that they can just, they want to be the next, deconstruction of a superhero. It's like,
and they have no idea what makes a superhero in the first place.
Yeah.
How can you do that? That doesn't make any sense.
And it shows in their work, right? It really, really shows in their work when they can't do it.
Yep.
Like I, early on when I wanted to get into comics, I was like, I could do this, I could do that. I was like, no, I can't. I can't write a Wolverine comic story. I could try, but it's better if I make up my own character and do that way.
Sure.
If I want to do a Batman, I can't get into it because I don't know how Batman really, really works unless I go read all these comic books. And I don't have all that time to read all these comic books just to write a Batman story. But there are so many legends out there who already have done it, who are already doing it, who you should just keep paying to do it, right? And just that's what their skills are at.
And don't forget these characters, these icons that we look at, Batman, Superman, Star Wars, they're all derivatives of 2 or 3 other properties that the creator was intelligent enough to put together to say what they wanted to say and were able to say it in their best way. Watchmen's a prime example. When all of those Watchmen characters are the Charlton pantheon of characters, but the proposal that Moore gave them was they weren't going to be able to use the characters afterwards. So they were told it's a great story, but we don't want you to use those characters because we want to use them for we paid for them. We want to use them for a long time. Make up your own characters. Yeah. So he goes out and not only does he make up his own characters, but he makes the characters to fit what he wanted to say. And it's better in the long run for him doing it. That work is we just spent on Comics by Night podcast I do Friday mornings. We just spent 12 episodes of Comics by Night going over each issue of Watchmen, and it is it is an amazing work. I got a book called The Annotated Watchmen, which had it all in black, the entire series in black and white, and it's a whole different experience seeing it stripped of color because Gibbons does an amazing job with the art on top of the amazing script that Moore gave him. And it's just one talent feeding off of the next. and it's just incredible sequential art, just beautiful stuff.
Now, I almost want to give me 1 second. I'm going to grab my Absolute. Just
Okay.
1 sec. I hope it is where it is. Yep. In there. Now, oh God. It's like half a kg or something, or maybe it's even more than a kg, this book. Right? And I actually, like a while back, I paid about $100 New Zealand, which is around about 50 US or 60 US for the covers, right?
Yeah.
For the covers. And it's I've never actually picked, I've only looked at this.
Okay.
I don't want to harm it, right?
Sure.
Because I already have the single issues, or I have, I have the trade paperbacks.
Mhm.
So I'll read that. But this is like my, my prize and I guess my treasure amongst treasures.
Be careful not to hurt the spine if you're going to open it up and show it on camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you've got your dust jacket.
Sure.
You've got, I actually have the T-shirt from the movie of the smiley face, right? I like
there you go.
Right
Yeah.
on the page.
Yep.
And this thing looks so good enlarged.
It almost hurts to hold it up to the camera. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I've
Great
probably
stuff.
only opened it once or twice, and you've got so much.
See, I've got the annotated Watchmen annotated, and it's got those pages in black and white.
So is it like the entire 12 issues in black and white, or is it just?
Yeah, it's all 12 issues, including all the backup features.
Yeah.
And it's got little notes of notation on the side here to tell you what to look for. Panel this had this in it, and you'll see that motif come back around in the next few issues, that kind of thing. Yeah. Just fantastic stuff.
So with this one, you've also got the script, and you got
there you go. Yep.
And everything, and it's like a how-to to do a comic book, really.
Well, on top of that, we were also using Watching the Watchmen by Dave Gibbons, and that's got a lot of his pre-production notes and stuff in it, where he breaks down all of his thumbnails. That's the movie, the posters that they use there. All of the thumbnails for that and how he got to it. Yeah.
That's the movie poster that I have.
That's got little bits of the script. All the every issue's got a set of thumbnails that he laid out before he did the finals. It's just it's also a great book.
Yeah. It's like you got to have this in your library. Otherwise, what are you doing with comics, right? So you've got like the Silk character.
Silk Spectre. Yeah.
Yep. And then you've got like the drawings and notes. Where's my hand? It's on the wrong hand.
And to me, everybody needs an edition of Watchmen like that so that they can go through and read it every couple of years just to remind them what great comics are supposed to be.
Yeah.
No.
And I the other book I have, which is similar to this, is like the Bendis's Powers.
The Powers book. Yeah, I'm familiar with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's great as well. I can't remember the artist name on there, but he's a famous artist, but I just can't remember the artist on the Powers.
It's not Allstetter, I think. Yeah, I can't remember who he is either. I'd have to look it up.
It's just, like, and to think that like they hire people who don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know the works of legends, and they want to come out and say, how do
you know where you're going if you don't know where you've been?
That's exactly it.
Yep.
That's exactly it. And that's why they keep failing. And I'm, I think the best we can do is go back and read the classics, right? What seems like the classics, but 2010s and all that work.
Not just read them, but learn from them.
Yeah.
You're not going to learn a whole lot of good things from modern comics. You need to go back and dig up those comics that put that spark in your eye that you remember so fondly when you were a kid. So there's a reason why you still remember those books. And it's not just nostalgia on a lot of this stuff. Some of it doesn't age well, but most of it is just incredibly solid evergreen material that you can go back and read and reread for the rest of your life. Yeah.
And
there's so much good stuff out there. I mean, the
that's
EC
it.
horror stories, the crime does not pay material, the early 60s Marvels, even through the mid 70s and early 80s, the Avengers versus Defenders War. That some of the first, there are sets of Justice League that are just amazing. You can't touch sets of Batman stories. You can't touch, just amazing stuff. You know, great Elseworld stories that are out there just begging to be rediscovered. Discovered. Gotham by Gaslight, and there's some phenomenal underground work that is just offensively amazing. There's just all sorts of comics out there in just about every genre waiting to be discovered, and a lot of that's sitting in the retailers' boxes, gathering dust, waiting for you to get out there and take a look and find them. You know, and that's not just American comics either. There's a phenomenal amount of just great sequential artwork out there, just waiting to be seen. So.
Yeah, I think when I started getting a bit disappointed with the mainstream US market, I started reading European comics. You know, the artwork just jumps out at you, the quality of, and you can see the heart and soul of the actual creators putting on each page. You know, just the art, just.
You want another school to learn from. Go out there and pick up anything that Mobius has done.
Right.
And just learn. Just read, enjoy, and learn. The first early issues of Heavy Metal, same way. The Word and Creepy the Eerie and Creepy magazines, same way. Early EC books, same thing. Great stuff out there, just waiting to be discovered.
There's another product that's been, you know, that's been abused, right? Heavy Metal.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
You know, it had such a fun run. I mean, like one of the earliest mature comics was Heavy Metal for me as a kid. Like I must have been about 15, 16 when I first.
One of the greatest mass market comics in America, because it was growing up the genre. It was showing people that comics could really be adult. It took them out of the under. It was literally the mass market of the underground era, because it took all of these phenomenal European and some American guys too. Corbin was in there, and Vaughn Baudet was in there at the start. All sorts of beautiful, great work, wide variety of stuff, and adult, not for kids, but put out there on display for people to just have their mind blown over.
Yeah, I mean, it's anything a activist touches gets destroyed, it seems. You know, it's like anybody with a so-called woke mindset or, you know, socialist mindset touches gets destroyed. And
you can have those mindsets. It's just that it's the talent that matters. Because you can have the most progressive opinion and the most, you know, I love reading alternate viewpoints.
Yeah.
It's just got to be done entertainingly enough to keep my attention, for me to if I can lose myself in it. That's how you're going to look at. And again, we go back to Twilight Zone and Roddenberry and all of these great masters who knew how to tell a story, make a point, but tell a story that's entertaining so that people will remember it. That's how you remember it. It's like giving a dog a pill. You disguise it in a lump of meat that he loves. That's what you need to do when you do entertainment. That meat is what we have to have. And you give us that pill if it's wrapped in enough meat, because we'll get it. We won't even notice it.
Yeah.
And that's,
but they don't want to do that. They don't want to make the effort of actually being softly with it. They just want to go, here it is.
Yep.
Force it down your throat. And if you don't like it, they go, it's your fault you don't like it.
Yep. Let me jump on a soapbox and call you an idiot and see if I make money off you. There you go. Yeah.
And of course they haven't, you know, it's and it's shuttered and it's stunted. I feel, you know, it's same thing that happened with DC with Vertigo imprint. Exactly the same thing, you know. They got somebody in there and it just destroyed that whole imprint. And that was the lifeblood of mature readers for so many years. I mean, like John Constantine, you know, Sandman, what was the other one?
Patrol, Animal Man.
Preacher,
the list is endless. And then slowly but surely they started decaying into that into that wokeness. And then when they tried to come back as a last gasp, all of those products were just ridiculous, just terrible.
Yeah.
And it's not because of what they were saying, it was how they were saying it that made it. The talentless, they're just a bunch of talentless hacks that were working on that. And they ought to be ashamed of themselves for printing it in the first place. My opinion. Yeah.
It's like, I mean, like, I think of like Shelley Bond and, gosh, now I've forgotten her first, Karen Berger, right? Spending decades building that imprint up as the editors, you know, and like working with all those amazing names that we trying to love, like the legends of that imprint.
You go watch an interview with Pat Mills, who did 2000 AD, and you'll see where Karen Berger found all that talent. Pat Mills found all that talent.
Yeah.
And if you haven't read the early 2000 ADs, more stuff you're missing out on. Just incredible material.
For us colony folk, you know, us colony folk, our weekly comic blood was this.
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
You know, that was our weekly blood
supply.
Of entertainment. Every week we got 2000 AD here in New Zealand.
I found 2000 AD through Star Wars.
Okay.
And the way I found it was because I was eating up every magazine that had every stray Star Wars theory that could be published. And I ran across a Fantastic Films magazine, and in there was an article talking about the appreciation for 2000 AD. And once I read, and it wasn't even Judge Dredd was just one of the many characters in that magazine. Every prog was amazing, and you just had to go out and find them. And right after I had read that article, I was working at a bookstore at the time. I had a guy bring in a grocery bag, big brown grocery bag filled with 2000 ADs, and asked me if I wanted them for $50. And I said, "Are you kidding?"
And you went, what?
Here's $50 right there. And it had about 200 progs in it. Yeah, about 4 years worth of stuff. It just ate it up. Just amazing work.
I had a moment like that when I opened my comic shop in about 2015, and because when we opened in 2014 October, I had this, you know, this newspaper article with me on it saying, "Hey, this is opened up. Comic shop comes to Northland," and somebody has seen it, and they came in and said, "Hey, I saw your article. We've got all this." Handed me a pile of 2000 AG for free.
Oh wow! Yeah,
how much you want for it? No, it's for you.
I just spent 19p a month, you know, 9p a month, whatever. Just this little amount for every issue of every week. That's sweet. There you go. And you were like, okay, thanks. You know, put them under the counter. I'm taking those home to read. Yeah.
It's sitting there, man. I was like, it's up, it's, you know, it's on the shelf. It's got its glory place, you know, up there on the shelf. And you ask any New Zealander, any Kiwi, about what was our age, right? What was the first comic that you got into? And they'll probably say 99% on 100 it was 2000 AD.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know? And for me to see,
I never considered that comic to be subversive at all.
Yeah.
I mean, it was greatly political, but again, just like what we were saying before, Mills, such a talent, is able to say whatever he wants to say and disguise it as entertainment, and did it incredibly well for numbers of years. Just phenomenal runs on different characters. Just just classic material.
The whole mega city, you know, with Judge Dredd, the fascist cops, and all this. Yeah. You know, the anti-hero type settings, the clown police, I can't remember what they're called, you know, with the noses and all that, the mutants, you know, the long walk,
the Hell Trekker.
Like, you can just go back and keep reading those 2000 so many odd comics that are out there, and you never lose anything.
Well, and thankfully they've put them together into large volumes. The only problem is they have to do it one character at a time because of the way the rights are written. But you can pick up a huge, you know, and you're getting like 100 or so progs worth of story in every case file that you pick up, you know. And there's Dread Files, there's Rogue Trooper, there's ABC Warriors, there's Robo Hunter, which is one of my favorites. Little kid chomping on a cigar, wielding a machine gun, shooting down robots. Just phenomenal stuff.
Yeah. Talking about which, that vapes, you know, the first vapes that came out were shaped exactly like the little robot Stoogie.
Really?
Right? From Robo Hunter. Yep.
Oh, that's cool. Funny.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was talking to my uncle back in Fiji, and I had that, and I said, like, I'll show you this picture from the 70s or whatever, 80s, and this is what's in there. And this is where this comes from, you know,
Cool.
because it's basically, you know, the cigar, and it's the whole robot looks exactly like one.
Yeah.
Right? One of those
Sweet.
long vapes.
Yeah.
It's just so classic.
Yep.
The one of the things I remember as a kid, like the reason, you know, 2000 AD was it so important to us was like my friend Regan, who was my neighbor across the street from me, his parents owned a pet shop. And so he had a weekly supply, you know, set up for the, you know, 2000 AD magazines. I mean, and we called ourselves the ABC Warriors. So we had a little hut, a tree hut, right? And that was it. And now I'm bringing out my own robot, you know, anthology type comic series called Robot Nation. And I was thinking, that must be why, you know, this is what's got me the inspiration.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
without even realizing it, you know. And I started with the first story back in 2010. And here we are like 13 years later. Now I'm actually making it, you know, and it's not the first story that comes out. It's like the third story that's going to come out. But one of the other things I want to, on the subject of 2000 AD, there were serials.
Yeah.
Right? There was a serial comic book.
Yeah.
And
well, you only had 5 pages an issue.
Japan.
You only had 5 pages an issue for a character. So you had to read them in a row.
Yep. And you had to make sure you came back every week and got it. And, you know, and I think, I'm not sure if there's any serials around in the mainstream anymore. You know, I know that over in Japan,
just ridiculous 6-part semi-stories that don't go anywhere, but not like 2000 AD. For me, here in the States, from my perspective, 2000 AD was like a perfect merging between the roughness and the uniqueness of heavy metal and those early 60s, 70s Marvels put together, because you had IPs that would return every week, and you had characters you got to know and love in phenomenal, fantastic situations. But it was done so entertainingly. You just had to keep coming back every time, you know?
Yeah.
And when a character got dropped, it was always disappointing. You're digging through the other, where's Strontium Dog? Come on, you know, and going, you had to skip these progs in order to get to the next Strontium Dog story, because Strontium Dog was awesome, and sit there and read that, you know. You had to have a set of them. I had to make a collection. But like I said, now you can get them in whole groups and in large volumes, and it's just great. Yeah, it's nice to see.
I got given a whole bunch of them because one of the libraries, well, one of the schools they had set up was closing down. Right, the school was closing down. So and so one of my friends said, "Hey, look, drop by." I got handed all these double ups, so I'm going to keep, you know, one set, and I'll give you the other set. So I had about 10 of, I think that maybe about 5 to 10 hardcovers of the 2000 AD stories. You know,
really?
Like, you know, I'm like,
Sweet.
yes,
Cool.
you know, and you know, because you know, when you, I think for us, because we're a very small community of comics people here in Northland and Whangarei, you quickly know who's in your, you know, in your niche, you know, in your club kind of thing, you know, in your group. And so you know who's after that. And even if there's people out there who don't have anything to do with this comics or don't even are into it, if they see it, they'll let you know, you know, and they'll put you onto it. And that's, I think that is the fandom, right? Like where we have our own little groups and stuff. And I think the attack on fandom has been so destructive in the last couple of years, because, you know, the very people who kept these IPs alive, that kept all these characters moving when nobody cared, you know, like nobody cared. And we kept them alive by reading them, by every week, month, week, going up and buying them, putting our money into them, to where that they're so become, you know, billion-dollar IPs now. But I think, you know, this attack on fandom for the last couple of years has been so, you know, there's mainly, some of it's deserved, a minute, you know, is deserved, but majority of, you know.
The thing though with fandom, when they tick off fandom like that, or they chase off fandom like that, fandom's going to go other places. You're not going to stop. That other folks might give up on comics as entertainment, but not everybody's going to start with. But they're always going to be attracted to quality quality, you know, just like Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. And that's why, you know, when 2000 AD first started out, it wasn't huge out of the gate, but it sure did get huge because enough people found it, told other people. And, you know, Mills probably did more for the European comic reading market than anybody else during that period, because he had a new niche market that he was catering to, that one wanted to be entertained and two had money. Yeah. And that was the big thing. Marvel and DC could chase everybody off that they want. That's their business. If they want to lose money, that's fine. But there's other places out there with comics that are going to make that back up. Yeah. That's why you're seeing like Eric July's pulling down millions of dollars. That's all money coming out of the ether. Who knew that would pull out that kind of money? Boom, it's there.
I noticed you have a copy of the back. When I first saw it, I was like,
oh, back here? Yeah.
Let's talk about that, because I think while the mainstream doesn't want to talk about it, I think us in the indies should talk about it as much as possible.
Anybody who's into comics as a business, anybody who's into this as a mode of entertainment, even, are going to be aware of this book. They're going to read it. They're going to understand it. They're going to critique it, and he welcomes open critiques. From, you know, other people that know what they're talking about. You know, and it's not a perfect product by any means, but it's gonna get better.
He doesn't
it's gonna be better.
He doesn't play the fools. What is it? He doesn't provide time for the fools as such, you know, kind of thing. It's like he knows what he's about, he knows what he's putting out, he knows why he's putting it out. They told him to put it out if he can do better, and he put it out and did better. You know, he's not eating cat food, like you said. I'm not eating cat food, right? And one of the things I said to I think I can't remember who it was. Oh, it was John Delarose. I interviewed last week or this past week, and I said to him, look, he could have taken his money and walked away, just done a one shot, right? He could have just done the one shot and walked away, and proved his point. Hey, I proved it. I can do it. It can be done. And could have, but no, you know, he knows what he's doing, and I think that's a smart man's game, right?
You know what it is. He picked up that first issue. He's not going to be gone. You're not going to see him disappear. It's in the blood. He's picked up that book. He's looked at it. He's probably reread it a couple of times. He sat there and went, "Oh, I can do a lot better than that. Let me change this. You know what? Let me get Chuck Dixon as a writer in here. If you got the money, you go and you get the best, do the best, and then you make the best. That's what happened.
Right. That's what happened to me. Like I remember doing this right last year. I put out the first issue for a convention run, which was based on the webcomic, right? So you can read the webcomic for free on PlungeComics.com. So I put up this right as the first issue.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Free to web comic, right? Put about $500 down, paid for it, did a couple covers, variant covers, and whatever. Sold about 12 issues, right? I think I only did about 50 or 40 issues, and I kept the rest. And so I went, okay, let's do this. And then I I looked at it and went, I can do better.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna not put this out, right? I'll put it out later in some other way. It's already free to read online. And I already have these copies there, you know, fine, that's cool. We'll hold on to that. But you know what? I'm gonna rewrite it, you know, and just leave the story where it is and rewrite a new introduction of the character.
Yeah.
Put it right there straight away. No backstory, no nothing. Just go straight away and then do little bits and pieces of backstory in issue 2, issue 3.
Sure.
But I'm gonna get a new artist, right? I'm gonna new colorist. I'm gonna get new covers done, and I'm gonna do it, you know, like I want to be able to compete with anybody else on the shelves.
Yep, there you
anywhere
go.
else. I want to be able to go there. And I think you're right. This is probably where Eric went, you know what? I have the money now. I've got my first one. And like you said, bring in Chuck Dixon to write it.
That doesn't mean he's going to stop writing, though.
No.
But he's Dixon's gonna write one of his other books, but you better, I would imagine he's going to put those scripts underneath for that he's writing underneath Dixon's nose, and everything that comes out, he's going to absorb and get better from. Yeah. So if you thought it was a flawed product, well, he made $2 million off of number 2.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people coming back, and some of that money's back into EiC, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So he's constantly growing his audience.
Yeah,
so good for him.
And success,
Mhm.
success breeds success, right? And people see success and they go,
Yep.
and it's the same thing with me. I was like, he can do it, so can anybody else, right? So which means that I can do it, and I can, if I play, if I stick with it, something that started in 2007. If I keep sticking with it, getting the numbers right according to where I want things to look like,
right,
the artwork to look like, the writing to look like, the colors and everything, then people will support it.
Yeah.
And that is shown, like with the Kickstarter. I mean, we only put $900 on it because it's our first one, right?
Yeah.
So we put it out there, and it gets, we beat it yesterday. We still got 3 more days to go, or 2 more days now, and we reached our goal, and that success hasn't even hit me yet. That we actually met our goal, but to then hold that actual physical product again in my hand.
Yep.
Full color, right? Not black and white, not
right.
webcomic, but full color, right?
Yeah.
Full color. And it's gonna be that another light bulb moment. It's like, we already halfway through illustrating the second episode, our second issue.
Yeah.
And
good for you.
Covers are coming in for those as well, because we're in the game for the long haul. I've got enough stories to keep going, like for you guys, right? With you, writing and doing all this work and drawing and stuff. We haven't even touched on the work that you've actually done, and that's what I want to concentrate on the next half hour, was to talk on all the different work you've done.
Okay.
Into your own light. I mean, we're talking about Arrow July, but for the indie comics, that's a coup against the mainstream.
Yes, it is.
That's how I see it. It's like what is it? The arrow or the cannonball across the starboard. At the other ship. There you go. See. Yeah. Next time I'll get it closer. I'll sink a ship next time.
There's market out there. There's money out there. Anybody out there who thinks that there's an end cap, or that you can only go so high, is limited seriously by their creativity. Exactly. That's the only thing that's stopping them. You if it doesn't, and the cool thing that I love about comics, you dig into comics history, you see this over and over again. There's plenty of times guys come in and they stumble and they make mistakes, or they fall flat on their face, or somebody stabs them in the back or whatever. It just the situations are many, but every time that happens, the resilient ones, the creative ones, we're in such a creative market here. The creative ones find a way to work around it, and maybe they don't completely succeed. But the market, the industry comes out better in the long run for them doing it. They might try a couple of oddball things. I've tried oddball formats and different things here and there, and I love doing it because I love that oddball stuff. But and not all of them have been successful, and I've lost money on some of them. But everything you do, you learn.
I mean,
and that especially means your failures, but it also includes your successes. Yes, like Eric July again makes all of this money. What are you going to do with it? Well, you keep it, and you intelligently start looking at how you're going to turn that back into your company. Yeah, that's what you have to do.
Whenever I'm out there walking around, I get inspired, right, of what's out on the thing. So when I see a toy like this, I go, well, I could turn my character into a toy.
Sure.
So, we had someone, I designed this as a chibi, and then, then I paid somebody $150 and said, hey, do me a STL 3D file, and then right now, one of the larger ones, which we're giving away at our convention, because it was made free for that purpose, is getting airbrushed with with the character artwork. That's was it 12? Not 12 inch, maybe 6, 7 inch or whatever.
As a physical, about I think about that tall. Yeah, about
that big.
Yeah.
Like cup size.
There you go.
As a gift, like as a award to someone, to say, hey, and and I think
that's
you are right. Like, we're limited. Yeah, we're limited by our ideas
creativity.
And creativity.
Yep.
And
we are the most creative that we're in comics. We're in alternative and independent comics. We're not working in the mainstream where we're told what to do. We're in the
Exactly.
alternative and independent markets where we do what we think is best to get the end result that we want,
Yeah.
whether it's just to be read, whether it's to make money or whatever. We're out
Yeah.
there pushing that market in order to try to find ways, and we will. There's creative ways to get around it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and you look at all of the different ways that are out there now, and it's really, the crowdfunding's the Wild West. There's so many people
Yeah.
trying so many different things. You really have to stay on top of what everybody, or as many people as you can, what they're doing and what they're getting, what results they have, what marketing they do, and all of this.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the old ways are the best ways, and sometimes you come up with somebody with a wild creative way and they end up making a lot of money doing things creatively. So
Yeah. One of the people that
Niobe,
that
Larry Higgins, how you doing, Larry?
yeah, early on that we got that got in touch with me, or either that I'd been following, and suddenly I said, "Hey, what's going? We're about to do this. What's going on?"
Yeah.
And said he called me on. He said, "Come on," and I said, "This is what we're doing with our with our Kickstarter." And he said,
Yeah.
"How about this? How about that? How about that?" And I said,
Mhm.
"Okay, let's try that." I said, I'm here to learn. This is my first gig, man. I don't want to make mistakes. You tell me what I can
Oh,
what
dude,
I can not
you
make
don't
mistakes on. I'll listen.
you don't want to make mistakes, but you're going to make mistakes.
Exactly.
And that's
Yeah.
why you keep doing this. You build up your library. Larry will tell you all about that. He's got multiple Niobe
Yeah.
books that he works on, and he's found different ways of marketing that book out in different unique, directions. So we're working with Arrow Comics right now. I'm doing a wide variety of different genres, trying a lot of different things, but it's all stuff that I'm interested in doing, that I want to give my heart into, Got a fantasy book and a funny book. We got funny animals. We've got superhero books, all sorts of different things. And there's a
Right.
lot more coming. But who knows what's going to hit, what's not going to hit.
Right. Let's talk about them.
We'll see how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about Arrow Comics and stuff. Now,
Okay.
yeah. So how did it come to be, and you mentioned how you got involved early on, and so on. Just give us a rundown about that.
Arrow's really the brainchild of Ralph Griffith and Stuart Kerr. They wanted to print their own books, but they realized if they printed anybody else's books, they didn't want to share too big a share of that pie. I mean, some of it went back to the company, but the majority of it went to the creators. So Arrow Comics was really, even before Image, was the first creator-owned company. Okay. Everybody who did a book through Arrow owned that property that Arrow printed. Arrow printed it, took a small percentage, gave the majority of the profits when they got them back to the creators. The first Arrow went down because the distributors constricted. The comic book distributors all started panicking. Marvel went out and tried to be their own distributor and screwed that up. And then Diamond went around and scared everybody else into signing with just Diamond. So they became the only distributor. So all the secondary distributors ended up filing for bankruptcy. And Arrow at the time was more a group of friends than an actual business. And they never kept track of their books. So it came time for these distributors hit financial times. They end up owing Arrow Comics a lot of money. So Arrow had to shut down. Well, Arrow comes back a few years later. Ralph decides he wants to do another zombie book, and he tries to bring The Dead out, and he doesn't have enough capital to keep it sustaining. And it was hard for Black and Whites to survive during that period. So he had to fold it again. Well, a year or so after that, I decided that it's time for me to get back into alternative publishing. So I got a friend who's the publisher on the book, Scott Moore, and myself. We pooled some money and we started Arrow Comics up again. And we ran for quite a few years doing black and white comics. But we learned a lot during that period. We learned how Diamond didn't want to treat anybody on an equal field. They didn't want to treat the independent books equally, no matter what kind of quality that you would give it. They still looked down their nose at anybody in the green section and literally wanted them to dry up and blow away. That put a very bad taste in my mouth. So after a while, we just stopped. And Scott, my publisher buddy, he's had a comic shop up in Saginaw, Michigan for decades, and he's still got it. And he's still running it real good. That's what he wants to do. So when Arrow that time stopped publishing, I decided I couldn't put up a Diamond anymore. I had to get out of comics. Well, you don't ever really get out of comics. It gets into your bloodstream and you can't totally get rid of it. I freelanced around a little bit and I ended up becoming the the cartoon editor for an alternative paper up here around 2000, 2004, about 2004, 2006, called The Uncommon Sense. And I went around, found people, we did political cartoons, and we ran it in that political paper. And that's the way that went. Didn't last very long. And well, it lasted 3 or 4 years and then folded. So then I got out of it for a while again, and got my own apparel printing business, and that started going south. And I decided that the cool thing to do was start my own newspaper. Only instead of it being political, I was going to do comics, because that's what I love. So I went out and got some syndicated strips, found some stuff that was in public domain, printed a bunch of my stuff, and put it all together into a newspaper that I called Flint Comics and Entertainment. A nice 20-page tabloid paper. We ran all sorts of strips in it. You know, we like to consider ourselves Flint's favorite bathroom reader. We printed 10,000 copies of that paper, gave it away. We had a whole set of newspaper boxes all throughout the county. And just in my little county, we were moving through 10,000 copies of that paper. And anything that got left over, we didn't let them recycle. We insisted on having it back. And then we did shows and handed them out, gave them out to people. You know, spreading the love of comics, right? It was all free. It was already advertiser supported. The print run it didn't have any staples or a glossy cover. It looked like a newspaper. So it was done literally on the cheap. So we handed that out. And what that taught me was that people love comics. There's a few people out there without a sense of humor, which seems to be growing all the time. But there was and that percentage was, at the time when I was doing the paper, was incredibly small. But the majority of the people came to love that paper. I was kicking it out monthly. I ended up doing 100 issues of that paper, 10,000 print run on each issue. And I was only getting back, sometimes I got under 100 of them back at a time.
Yeah.
Just fun times. And I grew a comic reading audience here, to the point where I was getting calls from people demanding to know where the paper was if the paper was late. And that really reinstilled my love of comics. And it just realized that it's accessible entertainment. As long as it's accessible, people are going to pull themselves to it. They're going to be entertained, and they're going to want more. So during that period, I was doing conventions once a year here in Flint to celebrate the paper's anniversary. And anybody that worked on the paper that was locally all got a free table, so folks could come in and see the people that were actually working on the paper. And that just helped it all the more. And during that time, I got to know about podcasting and about crowdfunding and campaigning and that kind of thing. So when Flint, we had a water crisis up here in Flint where we had a bunch of lead. It probably made national news. There was a lot of lead poisoning up here in the water, and a lot of the mom and pop businesses went out of business. And with that was our main advertising base. So after 100 issues, I shut the paper down. And when I did that, I started podcasting and getting back into it. We got involved in let's say a really bad distribution grift. One of the people I thought I was close to swore up and down he had a distribution deal running and wanted to start his own distribution company. So a group of us all went out and printed a bunch of books, and I resurrected Arrow Comics for that, under the promise that we were going to be out in a chain of retail stores and be all over the country, and it would be a big thing, and we were all going to make a lot of money. Well, come to find out, it was nothing but a big grift, as this guy wanted to make his distribution company look bigger than what it actually was.
Right.
And when that went south, we were stuck with a lot of books. We were still stuck with not really stuck, but we still had Arrow Comics. In the midst of all of that happening, I get to talk to Ralph Griffith, who's one of and Stuart Kerr. I had him on my podcast, did a history of Arrow Comics. And Ralph at the time knew that he was of ill health and he wasn't going to be on this earth much longer. I mentioned to him that we were bringing Arrow Comics back. And he told me to take the name, take the brand, and run with it until we couldn't run with it anymore. Right. So I'm already up to my neck in debt from the bad distribution company. Ralph passes, which was really sad. The bug hits all across the world. Yeah. And we've got all these comics to sell. We come back and, what are we going to do? And Luke Stone comes in, because Luke Stone's Hybrids became an Arrow comic because he wanted a place to be. And he takes the title and he starts adding to it and adding more titles. And I start adding more titles. And that's pretty much where we're at today. We're printing and campaigning as Arrow Comics as a group of independently owned titles and IPs out as under the Arrow Comics umbrella. We're keeping a constant eye on the quality of all the books to make sure everything is as professional as possible.
Yeah.
And we're promoting each other as much as we can at shows and stuff, because we're all over the United States and we're in Canada and we're in Portugal. There's a few other places that we're at, and we're just out to spread the Arrow Comics name. And everything that we do is because of the company that got started, or the ideal that Ralph and Stu brought to Arrow Comics back in the 80s. It's the same basic philosophy. It's just that we're all doing our own stuff. So I've got a bunch of books that I want to do, and Luke's got a bunch of books that he wants to do. And in the meantime, Luke goes out and starts fundmycomic.com, and he's working on his own distribution company off of the basic idea of where we started from back when this big fiasco happens. And we're just slowly building up a foundation from there, and we're going to see where it goes.
Right.
So in the meantime, I've got 2 issues of HeroBot Zero out there, which is a cartoon book with a little 3-foot-tall giant robot. That I like to describe him as a 3-foot-tall giant robot. He's got an arsenal all over his body and a really bad attitude. He'll fight menaces and defend his city as long as he can do it on the clock and get time and a half for overtime. Yeah, I got a superhero title called Paragon that's got artwork from J.R. Harris, who's a local kid. He's a local guy. A kid to me, 30.
Yeah.
But which is basically my version of Superman. What if Superman were to suddenly pop up in a modern world? It's a lot of fun to do. Well, there's the second issue here about Zero, but I also have a fantasy title called Calico Shard, which is a lighthearted fantasy book about a talking cat and an elf that likes to collect things, and a little barbarian fairy here, kind of Conan, only he's a fairy, and he's overly masculine, and an overly feminine female centaur warrior, and a wizened old wizard, as they all work together to try to put their world back together, literally. I've got The Fool out, which is that campaign that's a funny urban, almost like a clown crime fighter. I call him the rodeo clown of justice. That he goes out and he fights urban street crime with practical joke weapons and makes jokes and bounces around all over the place and uses trash can lids like Captain America uses a shield, and fights crime. And anybody he ties up for the cops, he takes a section of their clothing and incorporates it into his action outfit. So if he gets a hat shot off of him, he reaches back behind him and out of his pocket, he pulls a baseball cap out and puts it on and, keeps fighting crime. Uses a yo-yo, rubber chicken, paddle ball, whatever he can find. And the cops have been given the job, a couple of detectives have been given the job to find the guy and get him off the street because he's going to hurt somebody eventually. So the whole first issue is them comparing notes about their experiences with this fool guy running around fighting crime in the city. So on the next book I got planned after that is a completely almost opposite of the spectrum. It's kind of a horror title of a girl who breaks herself out of a test tube, a large tube, and fights her way out of a lab. And she can grow chains out of the palms of her hands with little hooks on them. And call her Allison Chains.
Kind of reminds me of like Pinhead and the Hellraiser thing.
Yeah,
right?
a little bit of Spawn in there too, I admit.
Yeah.
Only it's a female. Yeah. Just to see how it does and where it goes. And then after that, I've got a product I'm working on with Russ Leach, who did Only Death Can Save Us. We're working on adapting a Robert E. Howard Cull story for that. That's going to be a 68-page graphic novel. Right. That Russ is in the middle of doing the artwork for now. We'll be campaigning for that as an Arrow comic here shortly. And then in the meantime, Luke's doing more stuff. He's got Hybrids that's up to about 10 issues, and he's got Rift Riders that's on its 2nd issue, and Chrome Dog, which is finishing its 1st issue. And he's also doing another anthology book where we're bringing out a bunch of new talent that are doing public domain characters called Out of Obscurity. And then I've got a little cartoon monkey named Spank, who's going to be the host of that book, who's going to go around and introduce you to each character and how important that character is and why it's in, maybe even why it's in public domain, and the talent that's working on it. And then we'll run that. That's going to probably run about 100 pages. That's currently over at Fund My Comics that we're campaigning for right now.
It kind of feels like what is that one with the Elvira? It kind of like feels
Yes.
like he's Elvira introducing all the horror movies and all that.
Yeah, it's a cartoon
cool
monkey,
idea.
kind of a bitter. Well, he might not be bitter in that book, but he's a little cartoon monkey that goes around and introduces you to it. Then after that, I want to do a Mad style parody book.
Right.
That's like not Brandeck and Mad comic book stories parodying independent books, especially the cheesecake books, I guess would be the proper. I call it the circle template era. Where the women had incredibly large breasts and incredibly round hips. We're and have Spank host that as well. And we're looking at calling that the Spank Bank.
Yeah.
Just for fun and just pick on different female, tropes and just have goofy fun with it. And to me, Arrow Comics is out there to try to entertain as many people in as many ways as they possibly can with the best quality books that they can find. We also have Sin Killer from Marvi from over in Portugal, which is a kind of a revenge horror story. It is a revenge horror story. Actually, a guy returns from the grave and exacts revenge on his killers. And Soul Tech, which is a science fiction book that's kind of like Han Solo and a more serious Han Solo in a crazier universe. That's got a lot of, and to me, that's got a lot of 2000 AD influence in it. That I just love. We just fulfilled that campaign, I think a month ago or so. The main book on that, and Craig's working on more. Craig White's doing that title, and there's so much more to come. When we split Arrow Comics off into a more adult line as well with an Arrow brand we call 3G, that stands for Girls, Guts, and Gore, and the first book out of there is AR13L, The Little Mermaid, which is a parody of a famous property out there of a little mermaid with a gun that runs to the surface, and she's got a best friend, Crab, who's got a knife welded to one of his claws called Sebastian. And it's just for fun, just to go out there and just have a lot of fun with. And that book's got artwork in it by Eric Hodson, and it's written by Piper and off of an idea from Pixel. And it's man, I can't tell you how great a quality of book that looks like. Just incredible. And that it's just the start. Allison will probably be an Arrow 3G book. I've got a lot of other properties that I want to play around with and introduce people to. And so does Luke, and Luke's busy doing, all this other stuff as well. And we're picking up more books are coming under the Arrow banner all the time. So if you anybody who wants to see most anything that's currently available, not everything's in print yet. There's a lot of stuff in production. Arrowcomics.store is where to go for that. And then The Fool, I think, is still, it's still over at fundmycomic.com, but especially Out of Obscurity is over there now, and it's looking for funding. We're hoping to hit the goal for Out of Obscurity, because if we do, then I'm going to do another story that'll be part of the book that includes the Golden Age Daredevil and the Silver Streak. It's a story that's been brewing in my head for literally years, that I'm hoping I want to get it down on paper. I'm probably going to draw it myself, just because I can see everything in my head all laid out. And I just want to sit down and do it, and that's probably what I'll do if we can hit the goal. I think the goal on the book is $1,200. So that's what we got planned.
That's Arrow Comics in a nutshell.
That's the current nutshell. We'll see what happens. Talk to me again in a year, and we're probably going off in a whole different direction. So,
well, we definitely will, and I welcome you to come back. And I really I would like to talk about more of the more mature content that you'll be coming out on our PlungeX podcast, which is for mature.
Sure. Yeah.
Content. So thank you
so
guys.
I've done some of that too. Yeah.
So I'm quite excited that we're doing these these interviews and chats and discussions and introducing creatives out there that some people might not even know the names of, right? Or what imprints are out there, what's available, and such a cool fun. And so
you get me started talking about comics, sometimes you can't shut me up. So I just love this art form so much.
Yeah. So while I've still got you guys, before we finish up, I just want to say like, share, and subscribe. Please subscribe. Build up that algorithm for us. Allows us to do a bit more. Get more get more known out there, as they say.
Every
And
little bit
because,
helps. Every bit. Yeah.
Because having all this, all this talent come on here and nobody, seeing it and hearing it, it's just, it's a hit and miss. But it'd be so great to be able to share all these discussions with everybody, because that way it helps the creatives and gets more word out there about what the independent market is doing and independent creatives are doing.
Yep.
Now, at the moment, I've got Incredi-Girl on Kickstarter. So if, we've already reached our goal of 900.
Sweet.
So if you're able to please, support that, do so. We still got a couple of days to go. We're going to have our last couple hours on it on Tuesday in New Zealand. I think it's Monday in the US. We're going to do a live stream on that. But I want to give you the last. I know we've just had almost like a half an hour of you just talking about the background of it, but
it's scattershot all over the place. Yeah.
Something inspirational, something last word, final word from you, and then we'll finish up when we come back. So I'm going to put you on full screen, and give you 3 to 5 minutes, and just to give us your final words.
My biggest bits of advice out there is that we're in such a creative market. We're in a creative art form. It's not even we're making our own markets right now, and we need to go out there and play in as many places and in as many ways as we possibly can. And if you're out there doing comics, if you're doing sequential art, working on comics, and you love this art form even half as much as I do, go out there and tell people about it. And spread that word, because the best marketing we have right now is word of mouth, whether it's here on streaming or talking to people one-on-one. I just got back from doing a convention today. It's a miracle I still have my voice. And because you've heard me talk for the last 2 hours, I just jabber on and on and on. And the other big thing I want to tell everybody, and I like to end my podcast. I do 2 podcasts a week with the Indie Comics Network. So I like to say, hating and creating. If you're out there talking negative about people, if you're out there talking negative about products and stuff, you're not helping anybody. It's not even good for your own ego. So stop it and go out there. And you don't have to talk about these people you don't like. Go out there and talk about the people you do like. Talk about the comics that you love. That's what I try to do. And go out there and be positive about this market and this business. And anybody out there that's making money is doing it and if you want to make money, you need to learn how to do it. And you're not making money, you need to learn how it's done. So you need to go out there and look at everybody. You have to put whatever you think, or whatever political leanings that you have to put that in your pocket. And you have to go out there and look at what people are doing, how they're doing it, and if you can do it too and make money. Because all of us that are in this business are out to make a living. We're out to make money, and we're out to entertain folks. So, and there was a long period of time during the 80s and 90s where we were lucky to break even on a comic, let alone make a living off of it. And now through crowdfunding and other creative forms of marketing and it's Wild West out there. You can make a living off of this. You have to figure out how you can do it yourself. Brian Polito does Lady Death. He's got some great videos out there about how he did it. You look at these other people like Eric July, Van Sciver, all of these guys that are making money are making money in ways that they're more than making livings at it. And you need to see how much of that you can take and apply to yourself. You don't have to agree with them, but you have to understand them. And that's been a big problem that I've run into with other professionals in this business. They don't want to. I don't have to understand crap is what I've been told in the past. And it's like, no, you have to look at what so-and-so is doing, because if they're making money, there's a way to make money. And if they're being read, there's a way to be read. So you have to check your ego and check your politics or whatever, and go out there and look and see what's working. Scholastic's working right now. Scholastic's doing more for gathering new readers, especially in the American market right now, than Marvel and DC is doing. They don't care. They don't want those readers. Why do you care about them? All of their icons have been spoiled and crapped on by a substandard talent. It's time to go out and do your own. And we're in such a creative and independent market. And right now, there's never been a better time to generate capital and make living. Go out there and make livings for yourself. Just figure out how to do it and do it. And then tell everybody else how you did it so that they can do it too. That's my
excellent
advice.
Yeah, talking about Scholastics, one of our local independent comic creators has got a deal recently with Scholastics.
Oh, good on them. Yeah.
Of that series is called This Land.
Cool.
It takes in Indigenous Maori, New Zealand Kiwis into the storyline and stuff. And there's some languages, local language in there as well. It's by Mark Abnett. It's called This Land. So I'll put that up there just so you guys.
I sincerely hope Scholastic's treating their talent well.
Yeah.
And if they're not, shame on them because they're making money. All you got to do here in the States is walk into a Walmart. They've got a big display right in the middle of the aisle of Cool Cat Comic Club and Dog Man and all of Dav Pilkey. I wish you the best, buddy. I want to know what you're doing. I want to do what you do. I'm telling you that right now. He's done more in Cool Cat Comic Club in one issue than I've ever seen Marvel and DC do in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And if you're not reading those either, you need to take a little time out and pick up a couple issues of that and understand what he's doing. Because anybody
just for that reason.
Yeah, anybody that can move a book through the public schools and the libraries showing kids how to draw poop is amazing. They've got something, and they're I hope he's making an incredibly good living off of it.
Yeah.
And that Scholastic is treating him really good.
Yeah.
Pardon?
My end goal for my comics anyway from Plunge Studios is to get them in libraries and in bookshops.
Yeah.
Where I found them, right? Where I found them when I was at school.
Absolutely.
Tintin, Asterix on the libraries and at primary school. So thank you. I'm just going to put a little blurb here. This is our comic on Kickstarter. It's Incredi-Girl under project number 1. It's fulfilled, but we'd like a bit more. There's always room for more, guys. And you got 2 days to back it, and I'll appreciate it if you did.
Yep.
So there is someone here who just jumped in. This is Drake Tungsten. I've read the Cat Kid Comic Club.
Cool
right?
Kid.
Yeah.
What is I got?
So So please support us here on
Cat Kid Comic Club. That's what it is.
Yep.
And
that's the one I've got.
Folks,
I think
right there,
you
folks.
can learn, right?
How to draw poop.
Yeah. There's so much resources out there to learn from. Success.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Thank you, Randy.
Thanks so much for having me on. I love this stuff. Yeah. So yeah.
It comes through, man, and I'm just glad to have you with us. And I appreciate it. I appreciate all the people that come on here. And like I said, we've got PlungeCast is for all ages. PlungeX is for mature content, for mature comics you guys are putting out there. And so don't worry about saying, "Oh, I've got an older comic." Don't worry about it. I've got a spot for you, and we'll aim it for kids and not for kids, and it'll be out there. You won't get harmed on the algorithm because I'll make sure it's where it is. The other thing is we have a weekly, I think it's Thursday for the US or Wednesday for the US, which is a toys collecting and unboxing podcast where we just talk about toys and the history of toys and whatever theme. Last week we talked about Transformers. The week before we talked about G.I. Joe. And so I don't know what's going to happen this week, but we always have lots of toys around to talk about. So there is those 3 options.
The really cool thing about podcasting like this, being on YouTube and that, is that you're archived. And you don't have to catch these live. It's great if you do. You don't have to. With the Comics by Night show that I do early Friday morning, the majority of our audience listens to us after we're well off the air. Because we're out of there by 7 a.m. my time. So we get people listening to us all throughout the rest of the week. It's great.
I woke up and did a 5 o'clock New Zealand time podcast interview sort of discussion with Chris Gore. Which I've edited my nuisances out of it, and I'm going to put up just his portion. live coming out this afternoon, so you guys
Sweet.
can watch that this afternoon, because you know, like, I know that our guys here, most of us were asleep. You know, I had to wake up at 5 and do that for 40 minutes and then go back to sleep again, wake up for this one.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you, Drake, for your kind words. And guys,
Drake.
like, share, subscribe. And thank you, Randy. And for everybody
Oh, man.
watching.
Thanks so much for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So.
And for everybody watching, thank you for checking us out. We'll have this. I'll also like to do clips of it. So whenever there's important little bits, we'll do clips so you can actually watch the clip bits as well. So,
Cool.
you know, it's a great resource and a great inspiration for future creatives. And you're welcome. Thank you, Drake.
Great.
And all right, ka kite anō, everybody. Wherever you are, be well, be safe, and take care of yourselves. And we'll see you on the next podcast in the next couple of days. And like I said, if go out and support Arrow Comics
Please.
.store.
Yes. Yep.
And also Incredi-Girl's out there on Kickstarter. It's reached its goal, but more the merrier, man. You know, I want to get this into as many hands as possible. So thank you.